It seems clear that finding starting pitching for depth in the rotation is the biggest need for the Atlanta Braves this offseason. So we'll take a look at the starting pitching market, both free agency and the trade market, to see who makes the most sense for the Atlanta Braves. And Travis d'Arnaud signs a deal with the Angels, and he will not be back with the Braves. We'll discuss that and the impact it could have on the catching group for the Atlanta Braves going forward. All that on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at Shortstop of All. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves. If you're new and watching this on YouTube, please do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. And if you already are there, hit that thumbs up button and leave me a comment down below, as it does help the show a lot whenever you do that. We're approaching 11,500 subscribers on YouTube, so thank you so much for all your support. And if you're listening on the audio version, you can leave me a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. And thank you so much to all my everydayers out there sticking with me in the off season. I really do appreciate all the support that you give me here on the podcast. Today's episode, we're going to take a look at the starting pitching market, both free agency and trades. Big names in trades the Braves could potentially go after. But I think either way, as we discussed on yesterday's podcast, starting pitching is the biggest priority, the top priority, in my opinion. And I think the Braves need to find at least one, if not two, quality depth starters this offseason. So we'll take a look at who that could be. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. So we're going to do the same thing with the starting pitchers that we did last week with shortstop, outfield market. And I'm going to go through MLB Trade Rumors list of top 50 free agents and call out the top starters that they have on there. And then I'll go through their list for the top 35 trade targets and the starting pitchers that are listed there as well. Now, one that I have to mention that is not confirmed yet, but if he were confirmed, he'd be at the top of the list, if not right there. Roki Sasaki. If he is posted from Japan, this would be the best cheap option for the Atlanta Braves or any team, as you're basically signing him on a rookie contract, similar to Shohei Ohtani when he came over. And the most you would likely spend on him would be $7 million. So it's essentially like you're getting a top draft pick, a first-round draft pick, giving him, a big signing bonus, and then having him on a rookie deal for the next 5-6 years. He's 23. Again, if he waits till 25, he can sign a big deal like Yamamoto did last offseason for $300 million. He's a guy with a big arm, can touch 100 miles per hour, has a 2.02 ERA and a 0.883 whip, and a K per nine of 11.4 in 4 seasons in the NPB. He has not thrown more than 130 innings in a season, though. So certainly something to consider. And when starters come over from Japan, they're used to pitching once a week, and we've seen that with Yamamoto and with Ohtani, that generally you will have to incorporate some sort of 6-man rotation or work it out where they're only pitching once a week. So that is a downside a little bit, but it's obviously a huge arm, would be, again, at or the top of the list of free agents if he were posted. But that is not official yet, even though some people seem to believe that it's leaning that way, that it would happen based on, I believe it's his negotiations with the current team that has control over him. But either way, if that news were to break, again, he would obviously be a great option for the Atlanta Braves or any team. Now, next on the list of free agents is Corbin Burns. And MLB Trade Rumors has him projected to get 7 years, $200 million. That's the $28.5 million average annual value AAV. 30 years old is Burns, at least 190 innings in 3 straight seasons, and an ER below 3 in 4 of the last 5 seasons. And then that other season, it was 3.39. So we're talking about 5 years now of just complete dominance from Corbin Burns, 3 straight seasons of dominance and giving you a lot of innings. His K per 9 has gone down from 13.27 to 12.6 to 10.8 to 9.28 and then 8.38 this last year. But the results haven't been affected by that. It's just how he's getting it done. And I think that's a sign of potential longevity for Corbin Burns, the fact that he does not have to rely on the strikeouts in order to be successful, that he can pitch his way. And with the stuff that he has, it's not like the velocity has decreased at all. I think it's just a smarter way to pitch, to be able to go deeper into games. And if you have the ability to do that and have the stuff and command to do that, why wouldn't you? So again, that doesn't worry me at all. The Braves clearly value highly the ability of a workhorse. I truly think that the only reason, maybe not the only reason, obviously Aaron Nola is a good pitcher. I think one of the main factors for why the Braves were so willing to go to the lengths they did to sign Aaron Nola is because he has been a proven workhorse type of starter. I don't think the Braves would be willing to do that on everybody. I don't think they'd be willing to do that on a Blake Snell, maybe not even a Max Fried, certainly not somebody like a Tyler Glasnow, but a pitcher who, has the body and the typical frame of somebody that can be a workhorse, has proven that they can be a workhorse. It would not shock me if the Braves went after Corbin Burns. Now, do I think they'll get him? No. But again, it's a guy who's thrown 190 innings or more in 3 straight seasons and has been dominant. And so if you were willing to go to 6 years, 150 or whatever they were willing to go to for Aaron Nola, who ultimately, I believe, signed for 7 years, 170. If you're willing to do that for Aaron Nola, who again is a good pitcher, but in my mind, he's not on Corbin Burns' level. If you're willing to do that for Nola, why wouldn't you also be willing to do that for Burns if you feel like he is also that workhorse type of guy? So again, I'm not making a prediction that the Braves will get Corbin Burns, but for the reasons that they went after Aaron Nola so strongly, I feel like those same reasons are valid for Corbin Burns, who has also been, obviously really good, but really reliable for the last 3 years that he's been a full-time starter. So again, we'll see, but certainly would be a huge price tag to go get Corbin Burns. Blake Snell is next on the list. 5 years, $160 million, $32 million AAV for Blake Snell, 31-year-old lefty, a Cy Young winner when healthy, but he's made 25 starts or more in just 2 of 9 seasons. Always has a high walk rate, but he's able to overcome that because he strikes out over 30% of the batters he faces, and he doesn't give up a lot of hits. He had an expected batting average against of 180 last year, and it generally sits around 200. Highest it ever really gets is 230. So Blake Snell is really, really good. He's just very unreliable, the opposite of what I just talked about with the Corbin Burns, with an Aaron Nola. Max Fried is next on this list. Don't have to tell you much about Max Fried. He's projected to get 6 years, 156. I feel like that's low, $26 million AAV. I would not hate that deal for Max Fried. And again, as Braves fans, you all are very aware of what Max Fried brings you. I think he's a top 10 pitcher in all of baseball when healthy. He's somebody that even with the injuries, even if you just go in knowing he's going to miss 3, 4, 5 starts, it's still a guy that's going to give you 160, 170 innings with a low 3 ERA. That's just who Max Fried is. That's who he's been. And I honestly think that's who he's going to be. I don't worry too much about Max Fried falling off just because he's not somebody that relies on the strikeout. He is not somebody that relies on velocity. So I think he's going to, will he be Cy Young type of candidate, into his mid-30s? No. But I think he can still be really, really good and really, really effective over the next 3, 4 years. So again, 6 years, 156, I would not hate that if the Braves gave Max Fried that deal. Again, I don't think they will, but that would not be a terrible deal. And I honestly think that he gets more than that. Jack Flaherty is next up. 5 years, $115 million. That's a $23 million AAV as projected by MLB Trade Rumors. After having a 2.75 ERA in 2019, Flaherty kind of fell off the map for a little bit, had some injuries and also just a lack of performance, but he took a 1-year prove-it deal with the Tigers, was really good, got traded to the Dodgers, so he won a World Series there with them, had a 3.17 ERA in 162 innings with 194 strikeouts, and now he's about to get himself paid this offseason, and again, I don't think the Braves will be the ones to do it. Sean Manaea, 3 years, $60 million is the projection here. He did get a qualifying offer, which I think hurts his chances in free agency. A 3.47 ERA and 181 2/3 innings last year with 184 strikeouts. Another guy who did it on a prove-it type of deal, a 1-year deal with the Mets. He is 32. Again, that qualifying offer, I think, really hurts Manaea in free agency because, again, he had fallen off a little bit, kind of found it this past year. Are you willing to bet on that with a multi-year deal for a guy who you're going to lose a draft pick for? Again, I don't think the Braves are going to be in on him. You say Kikuchi, 3 years, $60 million is the projection for him. Been an up and down career so far. Astros seem to unlock his potential. Was that for real in a short sample size at the end of the season? If so, this could be a huge value for a guy that's 33 years old. You get him for, 3 years, $60 million, $20 million a year. And if the Astros did unlock something with having him throw that slider more, he can be really, really dominant. And he's had spurts of being really, really dominant. So this, I think, is the potential for the Braves or any team to kind of buy low on somebody who's been inconsistent, but has all the tools to be really, really good. Luis Severino, 3 years, $51 million is a projection there. Another guy who proved it with the Mets this last year and is looking to get paid, but he didn't prove it to the degree that we saw Severino in the past. It was a 3.91 ERA and just a 21.2% strikeout rate. So you're talking about a back half of the rotation guy. And the last pitcher I want to mention in this first segment here, we do have a lot more names to get to, but Nathan Eovaldi, somebody that's already been linked to the Braves, and just know the Braves are checking on everybody. But I do think there is some validity to Nathan Eovaldi. 2 years, $44 million is the projection there. 34-year-old righty. He has also had ups and downs in his career and in seasons in particular. At times, it looks like Nathan Eovaldi is a top of the rotation arm. At times, it looks like he's a 4 or 5. That reminds you of anybody that's been in the Braves rotation for the last several years. Again, I think he's better than Charlie Morton at this point, but at the end of the day, Nathan Eovaldi's a high 3 ERA pitcher over the course of a season. So again, I don't hate it, and certainly don't hate it at that price point, but I don't know how much of an upgrade that is in my mind over Charlie Morton. You're going to hear a lot of that as we go through some of the rest of the names on this list, because I think that's what you have to compare it to. If Charlie Morton is coming back, and it sounds like that is the case, how better are some of these guys we're going to talk about compared to Charlie Morton, who you could get back at a similar or even less price? We'll discuss some more of those names here next. You shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to your next big event, and you don't when you use Gametime. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. They have killer last-minute deals. You can filter it for the all-in prices and get a view from your seat on the same screen, and you get the best price guarantee. That means if you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. I use Gametime now anytime that I'm thinking about going to a Braves game. What I love to do is just continually check the app the week leading up to the game, because they have those flash deals. You can get great prices on really good seats. So make sure next time you're thinking about going to a Braves game or any event that you're checking out Gametime, looking for those last-minute deals. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guarantee. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONMLB. You're going to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Braves your first listen of the day. Go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen, solely keeping you up to date with everything happening around Major League Baseball this offseason. You can check that out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day, even in the offseason. Tomorrow, we will look at the relief pitching market, which suddenly becomes a big need for the Braves, with Joe Jimenez being down for most, if not all, of 2025. So that suddenly becomes a very important target for Alex Anthopoulos this offseason. We'll talk about that on tomorrow's episode. And then on Thursday, I will tell you what I would do. I'm going to play GM. I'm going to tell you what moves I would make this offseason, and they'll have our mailbag episode on Friday. Let's look at the remaining free agents out there for starting pitchers. Matthew Boyd, a guy that it feels like we talked about forever as a potential trade candidate for the Braves. And I'll be honest, I never loved the idea of trading for Matthew Boyd. He's projected to get 2 years, $25 million, a 33-year-old lefty. This past season, he made 8 starts, had a 2.72 ERA, a 1.13 whip, and 46 Ks and 39 2/3 innings. Looked about as good as Matt Boyd has ever looked. Hasn't thrown more than 80 innings in a regular season since 2019, though. Only 3 times in 10 seasons has he eclipsed 100 innings. So not somebody that's been very reliable. Next on the list, Andrew Heaney. 2 years, $24 million is the projection for him. Solid back-end starter on a good team who will have a 4 to 4.5 ERA. I mean, that's who Andrew Heaney is. You know who else that is? Charlie Morton. Frankie Montas, 2 years, $22 million. He's one guy that did not prove it. There were so many starters last year that had to take 1 year prove it type of deals, and it seemed like it worked out for a lot of them. But that wasn't the case for Frankie Montas, who did not have great numbers, was okay, then got traded to the Reds, and he had an ERA over 5 there. And he hasn't really been good since leaving Oakland. Walk rate ballooned the last 2 years. Throws pretty hard, though. He is somebody, like he wasn't somebody that necessarily proved it last year, but I would not count out the Braves in getting a Frankie Montas, because I think he is somebody that if you moved him to the bullpen, he does still throw hard and maybe throws even harder in a bullpen role. And he has a splitter that gets really good swing and miss. So he's somebody that maybe you could sign. 2 years, $12 million, maybe too expensive for this, but you could sign him as a bullpen / 6 starter. And I think that'd be a good role for Frankie Montas. So I'm not ruling that out. Somebody I am ruling out now is Nick Pivetta. And he is a guy that when the offseason began, he was one of my main targets for the Braves. But he got a qualifying offer from the Red Sox, and I think he should take it. Same for Nick Martinez. He, for some reason, got a qualifying offer from the Reds, and I think he should take it. Jose Quintana, 2 years, $20 million of projection there. I said this already before. I think Jose Quintana is a similar but different version of Charlie Morton. And what I mean by that is he can pitch, and at times he can be really good and give you innings and keep you in a game, but he doesn't strike out a lot. Where Charlie Morton is, he can still strike out. Doesn't matter. He still has some swing and miss stuff. I think I'd rather take Morton on a 1 year deal for $12 million than lock into Jose Quintana for multiple years, at 10 to 12 million. Just my personal opinion. Max Scherzer, 1 year, $16 million is projection. That's too risky for me. Walker Buehler is a name that we've talked about a lot and many people are interested in. He's projected to get 1 year, $15 million. I think that's less risky than Max Scherzer because of his age. He's only 30, and he's still not far removed from a 200-inning season in 2021. And his velocity coming back from a second Tommy John was still the same as it was in 2021. So again, while he looked bad, there is no denying that. He did look good in his final 2 starts in the postseason, and I'm hoping that doesn't then play him into a multi-year deal. Either way, I think it might be in the best interest of Walker Buehler to take a 1 year deal and just take the highest AAV, whatever that might look like, and whoever might give that to him. So I like the idea of a Walker Buehler on a 1 year, $15 million deal. I think that is a risk worth taking because if he can turn around and look like Walker Buehler of the past, now he's a little bit more removed from that second Tommy John, that's a great value on a 1 year deal. And if it's not, then it's a 1 year deal and you kind of cut your losses. Kyle Gibson, 1 year, $13 million projection. Again, I'd rather have Charlie Morton than Kyle Gibson. Shane Bieber, projected for 1 year, $12 million. Not sure when he'll be back, coming back from injury. I think if you were going to sign Shane Bieber, could you convince him to take a 2 year deal that's backloaded? So maybe a 2 year deal where he makes $8 million in 2025, but then makes $24 million or something like that in 2026. I feel like that's the type of deal I could see the Braves doing. I don't know if that's in the best interest of a Shane Bieber, who, could just sign a 1 year deal next year, come back, pitch, half, 3/4 of the season, and then go out and try to get a big deal. But I could see that being the type of deal that the Braves make where they get him to sign for a 2 year deal where it's kind of backloaded on that second year. Justin Verlander is last on this list here. 1 year, $12 million is the projection. I just say no thanks. I feel like Justin Verlander is probably over at this point, but never really doubt the Hall of Famer. We'll see what he comes back with, but I'm just not willing to take that risk. Looking at the trade targets, Garrett Crochet is at the top of this list. 25. He's only under team control for 2 more years, which may surprise some of you. It surprised me, but he came out so early for the White Sox and started that clock and then got injured, and that's the way it goes for the White Sox. They just can't have nice things. So now is the time, really, the White Sox need to trade him because he only has 2 years of control left. And I'm sorry if you're a White Sox fan, you are not competing in the next 2 years. So he is going to be one of the most coveted trade targets this offseason. He might be one of the best pitchers in baseball, and I don't think that's hyperbole. So the White Sox are selling high. They should be asking for a big package. Can the Braves provide that? Is the question. What does that even look like? Is that trading an A.J. Smith-Shawver and a Hurston Walter? We talked about this last year with Dylan Cease, and even then I felt like the Braves probably had to give up those two guys for 2 years of Dylan Cease. And I think Garrett Crochet is in an even better position than Dylan Cease was a year ago. So I think the package would have to be huge. I don't know if the Braves are willing to pay that, but certainly getting somebody like Crochet, who's not making a lot under arbitration because he hasn't pitched enough to earn that money in arbitration, but only 2 years of control left. But still, it's going to be a very high price. But obviously, like I said, could just potentially be one of the best pitchers in baseball. Eric Fetty is another trade target, set to make $7.5 million next year with the Cardinals, who I don't know what the Cardinals exactly are doing right now. He pitched well coming back after playing overseas for a little while, probably a back-end starter. And if that's the price that you're paying for him, then I'd be fine with it, because I think he is a solid 4 type of starter, maybe pitches like a 3 at times. So I do not hate that idea to get a veteran starter for cheaper than you would get, a Shane Bieber or even a Walker Buehler or somebody like that. If you could get him for $7.5 million for 1 year and you don't have to give up a big prospect, I don't mind that route for an Eric Fetty. I know that probably doesn't excite a lot of you, but that's the kind of pitcher that I'm looking for to give depth, somebody that can give you some innings, give you a chance to win. And if you can do that for $7.5 million instead of doing it for $12 million for a Charlie Morton, and I would honestly like to have both, then I think that's an okay deal. Jesus Luzardo, arbitration eligible through 2026 with the Marlins. Would they trade him in division? I don't think that's a type of move where they wouldn't do it, but the price would obviously have to be right. But he's another name out there, could replace that left-handed starter with Max Fried being gone. Aaron Savali, arbitration eligible, set to make $8 million in 2025. Brewers are always looking to save money, and he could be a solid mid to back of the rotation starter. So again, similar situation to what I mentioned with Eric Fetty a minute ago. Could Savali give you similar innings to a Matthew Boyd, to a Nathan Eovaldi, to a Luis Severino, to a Sean Manaea even, and do it for almost half the price? I think there's a real argument to be had there that is the case. Sonny Gray, set to make $25 million in 2025, $35 million in 2026, and has a $30 million team option for 2027 with a $5 million buyout. No, thank you. And this is somebody that I've never been a huge, I don't want to say fan, because I have nothing against the guy. I've just never been that high on Sonny Gray. Unless the Cardinals just want to dump salary here and also take on some of that money, there is no way I'm touching that Sonny Gray contract. So I don't think that's happening. And lastly is Jordan Montgomery. There are already rumors that the Diamondbacks are trying to move him, and it sounds like they just want to get rid of the money. Set to make $22.5 million in 2025. I do not hate this deal. If it is just a pure salary dump and you are not giving up much for Jordan Montgomery, I liked Jordan Montgomery last offseason. I talked how I think he's the ideal candidate for what the Braves are looking for. Somebody who up until last year was the model of consistency and durability. I also said last offseason, I don't think he's a top of the rotation pitcher, but $22.5 million is not in today's market, a top of the rotation pitcher. Look at Charlie Morton. They were paying him $20 million. He wasn't a top of the rotation pitcher. So again, it depends on the price. It depends on what you're giving up, but I don't mind a move for a Jordan Montgomery, because I think he's going to have a much better year. Like Braves Thrill says, Montgomery didn't get a proper spring training, similar to Blake Snell, who got off to a slow start. So you get Jordan Montgomery, get him a fresh start in spring training, starting the year, not worrying about the contract, although I guess he'll technically be going into another contract year for him. But I don't mind that move. And I think it makes some sense, again, depending on, are you taking on all that money? What are you giving up in return? I like Jordan Montgomery, and I think he will be a good pitcher again in 2025. So those are a lot of the options out there. Let me know your thoughts on these guys. Who do you think they should go after? In fact, I'm going to get some of your thoughts here in a second, but we got to get into the Travis d'Arnaud news, and we will here next. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on all the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. And if you're like me, maybe you're not a bettor or gambler, but you want to go check out the odds, you can see the World Series odds for next year, and the Braves have the third best odds out there. And also, while you're there, make sure you visit FanDuel.com/playsafe for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way that you play. But never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So some pretty significant news, at least for Braves fans, on Tuesday, with Travis d'Arnaud signing a deal for 2 years, $12 million, $6 million a year with the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. I was dead wrong on this because I said I don't think there's any way that Travis d'Arnaud plays for another team than the Atlanta Braves. I figured he was either retiring or the Braves would just bring him back at $4 million a year. Instead, he gets $6 million a year to go play for Ron Washington and now Sal Fasano, who was also hired by the Angels as an assistant pitching coach. So again, this was a bit shocking to me. I did not see this happening. Happy for Travis d'Arnaud. Happy he's going to the Angels. Hopefully he can help Wash and those guys get it going. That's a big loss for the Braves, not necessarily for on-field production, even though Travis showed at times this past year that he can still be very effective at the plate. And obviously pitchers love throwing to him. But it's more so for the leadership, which means a lot. Look, if the Braves aren't, obviously we know now they're not getting Travis d'Arnaud back, although I would not say it's completely done. The Angels and Braves have hooked up on some trades in the past. And if something were to happen to Sean Murphy and their catching room was to fall apart, it would not surprise me at all if the Braves were to trade for Travis d'Arnaud during the season. But as of now, you have Travis d'Arnaud not coming back and potentially Charlie Morton not coming back. Those are two of your big veteran leaders in the clubhouse. And look, I'm not saying the Braves can't win without those guys because they have clearly dropped off in production. But that's some big leadership, big holes to fill leadership-wise in the clubhouse. But again, happy for Travis d'Arnaud, and I'm curious what this does mean for the Braves catching group that they have. Are they going all in on Sean Murphy, which is what I hope. Look, whether you like the trade or not, you went out to get Sean Murphy to be your guy, and you've really yet to let him be that guy. You know, some of that, or let me correct that. The only time that you let him be your guy was at the beginning of 2023 when Travis d'Arnaud got hurt and Sean Murphy was catching almost every game and he was the best catcher in all of baseball. And then injuries happen, split time at the end of 2023, got hurt. You know what happened in 2024. We don't have to relive that, but I'm excited to see what Sean Murphy can do because this is the guy you went out to get. You gave up William Contreras for. I hope this is a commitment to Sean Murphy to buy into him as your catcher 120, 125 times a year. You also have Chadwick Tromp, who I think is a very solid backup catcher that could be ready to fill those shoes of a Travis d'Arnaud. And you have your top prospect, according to some outlets, in Drake Baldwin, who could be ready to step in soon. So look, would it surprise me if the Braves went out and got a Higashioka or a Danny Jansen or something this offseason? No. But I think this was an area where the Braves felt like they could save some money by not picking up Travis d'Arnaud's $8 billion option and be okay with what they already have in-house. And my projection now is that will be the case, and that they won't go out and sign another catcher, and that they'll go into the season with Murphy being your guy, having Tromp as the backup, and Baldwin waiting in the wings. So again, a little bit surprising, not necessarily because Travis d'Arnaud isn't a Brave, but the fact that he signed with somebody else. I knew that he'd be coming back to the Braves on a $4 billion type of deal, but good for him getting 2 years from the Angels. Some other news, I mentioned Sal Fasano, the assistant pitching coach for the Angels. So again, good for him. That was a surprising one for me that they let him go. Sounds like everybody loves him in Atlanta. So again, hopefully he can help the Angels get going. I want to see the Angels get to the postseason. Michael Lee Tunes, I see you're watching me live tonight on the big screen TV. That is scary, but thank you so much for joining me there as well. Docs Guards, Braves Thrills, Anthony Hood, Braves Fan 21, Monty 2K, Mass Boost. Thank you all for joining me here today. Another note on Tromp there, while I'm thinking about it, he is out of options. So he is most likely going to be the backup to start unless there is an injury. So also wanted to mention that. But thank you all for joining. Laves, Jay Alvarado, appreciate you being here with me live tonight. Did have some of your responses I'll try to get to quickly as I asked some of you what were some of the top pitchers that you would like to see the Braves go after. Joe Milby says Max Fried, Walker Buehler, and Garrett Crochet. Steve Lamb says obviously want Fried back, but Nate Eovaldi, Garrett Crochet, Jacob deGrom. Jacob deGrom making a lot of money for the Rangers. I don't think that's going to happen. XRP Brave says higher priced options, Max Fried, Nathan Eovaldi, Sean Manaea. Hopefully cheaper prices, Nick Martinez, John Means, Roki Sasaki. Nick Martinez, that qualifying offer, there's just no way I'm touching that. Nate Oates Mechanic Shop. Fried, Buehler, Sasaki, Crochet, Montgomery, and Gray. I'm not touching Sonny Gray. And Josh Ezel says, realistically, Eovaldi, Pivetta, Morton at a much lower cost, or maybe Bibee, Tanner Bibee is not, who is eligible here. Shane Bieber on a 1-year deal with a club option. So thank you all for submitting those responses. Be looking for those responses during the offseason to be included in the show. But again, thank you all for joining me here live. I really do appreciate it. Please continue with those comments in the comment section below. Thanks for making Locked On Braves your first listen of the day. Go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen. Follow us on social media at shortstopball, at LockedOn_Braves. Subscribe to us on YouTube if you are new. Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already. And again, leave me a comment down below as it does help the show out a ton. And make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast. And we will talk to you next time.